Should family vlogs and child influencers be illegal? This is a question that creators like myself who put our lives online have grappled with from the very beginning of being able to put our lives online. And it's a topic that's getting a lot of discussion right now because of Shari Franke, daughter of the convicted child abuser Ruby Franke, whose book about growing up on camera as part of the extremely popular Mormon family blog, 8 Passengers, has just dropped this week.
From there, Ruby would go on to post more than 1,300 videos of her family, eventually amassing a following of more than 2 million subscribers. So again, when this news broke of her arrest, this was a big deal. A lot of people knew who she was. And for those who may not be as familiar with the Mormon faith, Shari explained that the idea of family vlogging just made sense with the lifestyle that they were already living. She writes, in a way, the synergy between YouTube and LDS families seemed almost predestined, fitting perfectly with the church's desire to be in the world, but not of the world, allowing members to engage with modern culture, maintaining our distinct values and beliefs. So for the next several years, Shari lived in front of a camera as a child. Any and every moment could potentially be framed for content. The more personal, the better. And once Ruby reached the YouTube level where she could monetize the videos, the money and the sponsorship started pouring in. But these videos weren't without controversy.
As someone whose every living, breathing, waking moment of life was put on camera, Shari has been speaking to lawmakers about the need for legislation to protect children from what happened to her. Let's dive in. I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take Two, where I share my personal experience escaping a different form of Mormon prison, and that was tradwife life, which of course is one of the main reasons why I follow cases like the Franke family so closely. It's really close to home for me. I think it's really important right off the bat to separate out the two aspects of Shari Franke's life. Shari was the child of a convicted abuser. That is one aspect of her life. Shari was also a child influencer. And while those two things do overlap, for the purposes of this discussion, I just want us to focus on being a child influencer because that system has positive and negative impacts, whether or not the parent in question is abusive at all. Unfortunately, as I hear a lot of discussions around this topic of child influencers, I think too many people with the Shari Franke situation are getting lost in the weeds of abuse, and they can't separate the two and just see the impact that child influencing has on people whose parents may be happy, normal, wholesome, and amazing, and utterly non-abusive. Now, I know a lot of creators out there are sharing all kinds of data and research and what psychologists are saying about child influencers. I'm not going to do that. That's not what this video is about. I am a former Mormon mommy vlogger. I am an influencer. And I'd like to share my experience and my conclusion. And I want to start here. I'm almost 51 years old, so I didn't grow up with social media at all. I grew up with a camera with film in it. And if I wanted to share anything about my life, then I would take my little camera on vacation to the beach with me. I would take pictures. I would stick it in a photo album or a scrapbook. And then when my grandma or my friends or somebody came over, I would open up the photo album and show them what my trip to the beach looked like. When I went to college, we still didn't have computers. I was handwriting or typing or putting on a word processor my theses and essays. When MySpace and then Instagram and Facebook came along, it felt to me very much like my family photo album. I friended my mom and dad and my cousins who lived across the country and my old bestie from high school and people that I actually knew. And because they weren't in my life and couldn't just walk in my front door and look at that photo album sitting on the coffee table, I was able to take pictures of my new baby, post them to Facebook, and then all of my family could share in those moments with me. And it felt exactly the same way that my old photo album felt. These are people that I love and that I trust, and I want them to see the pictures of my kids. The pictures of every single meal that I eat at a restaurant, the pictures of every hike that I do. I mean, all of those things that We share with everyone. Now, part of the reason we do this as human beings is that we have a primary need for validation. That validation tribally keeps us from engaging in behaviors that would hurt other people in our tribe. Because if we do something awful, then we're going to get feedback about that, like you're stupid. And then if we're doing something positive, that validation reinforces healthy, appropriate behaviors. You know, when you have a toddler and they're always like, look at me, I just did a somersault, or look at me, I just threw my own socks in my little hamper. We still have that strong drive as adults. Look at me. Again, it keeps society cohesive and keeps the outliers from engaging in negative behaviors because they're going to receive negative feedback. Social media plays into that. Look at me, I just ate this salad, and then we get feedback. With Facebook, I always had this feeling that it was pretty much protected. I had a lot of privacy settings, and nobody that I didn't want to see my stuff ever saw my stuff. Then we morphed into things like Instagram, things like YouTube, things like TikTok during the pandemic, and the whole ballgame changed. The first video that I ever did on YouTube is still on my YouTube. If you scroll way down to the beginning, it was just me sitting in my bedroom, and I had started a divorce care podcast with a friend. We said that we were going to take it off of Facebook to YouTube, and I pulled up my shirt to show my mom belly, just my stomach, nothing crazy, guys. I wasn't an OnlyFans page. I was talking about divorce and authenticity and loving yourself, and I kind of patted my little poochy mom belly and said, you know, even though I have this poochy mom belly, I still am learning to love myself. That video overnight hit 17,000 people, the original video. I woke up the next morning, 17,000 people have just seen my mom belly, and so I took it down. I did put it back up later. It's, I don't know, reached a couple thousand people at this point. That feeling that I had of, here's my pictures, I'm going to put them in the photo album. Trusted people are going to come into my house and look at my coffee table, and they're going to see that so that I can get that validation and be part of a tribe, which I then carried over to my Facebook, which was still a fairly protected area. I had those feelings going into my YouTube. Nobody's going to watch this. The people that do are just going to be my friends. I didn't understand algorithms, and who would watch that other than like my sisters and my bestie? By the way, let me tell you one person who did watch that original video, and his name is Kevin, and he is now my partner. We have been together for over 5 years because of that video. I'll do another video on that. I know so many questions. So here's what happened. I went to my local Trader Joe's in Gilbert, Arizona, just a couple days after taking that video down. And while waiting in line, a girl turns around and she says, "Oh my God, hi." And she's this really hot little yoga mom, and she kind of lifts her shirt up so that I can see her tummy. And she is like, "Me too. Like, I have so many stretch marks." And then she like gives me a hug. And it freaked me out because I realized all of a sudden that I was putting things out into public that would normally have been private. And the algorithm of the social media that I was engaging in had a reach far beyond anything that I could even wrap my head around. Years before, I had actually been a family vlogger, mostly on Facebook and mostly in private groups. I ran a whole entire business with my ex-husband called Dear Mrs. Green. It was all about green living. And 99.999% of the people who listened to my radio show or my podcasts or tried my recipes or followed my Instagram or my Facebook page were my customers. They were people that I had marketed to. It was a very small group of people. And I felt like I had control over who was watching me. And to be honest, I did to some degree. Now, I have said in interviews and articles across the globe that I was the OG ballerina farm, and I think a lot of us were. Pioneer woman and green smoothie girl. We were all out there homesteading and being skinny and cute, and all these kids running around in the background with chickens and horses and goats and whatever our farm animal of choice was. And I started to notice as I ran that platform that a picture of me whipping up eggs for my family did not get the views or the engagement that a picture of my kids whipping up eggs for the family. And my kids became one of my biggest marketing tools. Again, I did have some degree of control just because of the algorithm, and a lot of my stuff was like an actual blog. I started doing more and more videos and photos and blog posts with my kids because they were the money makers. Sometimes they would ask me, even as young as kindergarten, like, well, do we get paid for this? Are we getting extra allowance? And I would say, no, you get this fancy house and that amazing vacation and gourmet organic food and that chicken. Like, you guys are contributing to the household income. And at the end of the day, I was just a trad wife, so I didn't have access to the bank accounts and I didn't make any decisions about our money at all. That money didn't come to me. It went into my husband's account. That's a complicating factor that most people don't have, but my kids didn't get paid. They just worked for room and board. Of course, I would get divorced and that would all get shut down before I had the opportunity to really explore the nuances of using my children in my content. And then 4.5 years ago, I would start Life Take Two, which was my online journal of the real life breakdown of my marriage, finding myself homeless as an ex-Mormon, ex-trad wife, and then rebuilding life on the other side. I explored topics like STDs at the hands of my irresponsible husband who had cheated on me for years and going to divorce court. I talked about just about everything in my life so that I could showcase what it looks like to have financial dependency on a partner. My channel blew up right away, and instead of reaching, a few hundred, most of whom were my family, I was reaching millions. And I wasn't informed and educated in some of the things that I might need to change as I shared my private life on camera. I have a friend who's famous for music, and he was dealing with some of the same stuff that I was dealing with, only he had a team of professionals. He had attorneys, he had public image people and advisors. He wasn't handling his own comments. And he had this incredible team that was helping to guide him through everything that he did and every decision that he made. And I think that that's one of the problems with social media and where some of these families run into trouble is that we don't have those teams. I'm just a mom in Arizona with a camera in my bedroom, and I don't know best practices, and I don't have people advising me on what I put out there. So in the beginning of my TikTok, I started incorporating my kids more and more into content, sometimes with their permission, and sometimes I did pay them to do this video or that video, but often just filming them without them even realizing. I would have the camera propped up in the kitchen while we were having dinner, and then I would post it, and sometimes my kids would be annoyed afterwards, say I didn't like the way my hair looked, or I didn't like those shorts, and I didn't know that my privacy was being invaded during dinner, Mom. That makes me super uncomfortable. But I kept doing it anyway. Those videos were getting great views, and I felt like I was helping people with the message that I was sharing. And then one day I picked my son up from school, and this was in a week that I think I reached like 15 million people that week. I had some videos that were going crazy, and my son was extremely upset. As I was sharing my story of poverty and rebuilding my life and going to court after divorce and including him in those videos, people around town were recognizing us. Like all of his teachers and people from school, everybody was following my account, and my son was going to school, and everybody knew everything about his private life and what his bed looked like, and that he had left his toothbrush in the kitchen and all of these other things. And it was negatively impacting my son so acutely that I just stopped. I couldn't deny the impact that I was having on my child. I started working with my family therapist about it. She didn't know that I had been putting my kids in videos. She doesn't follow me. She's just my therapist. She doesn't have to spend time knowing everything about my life. And the question that I brought to her was, but there's so many child celebrities out there and their faces are all over the place and they do just fine. So my kids are really just like low grade, very small audience child celebrities. What's the difference? And my therapist had an incredible thought that shaped everything that I do now. She said, most child celebrities, they are acting. There are not a lot of child reality TV shows, and the ones that there are have been very negative for the people in them, like little Honey Boo Boo Girl, very negative for her to have that light shined on her. What was that, Dance Mom? Child actors are acting. They leave their home, they go to a set, They're playing a different character. Now, somebody may say their nose is crooked or their voice is squeaky or they're too short or too tall or too skinny or too fat or whatever. But at the end of the day, we don't know their private life. We are looking at just a character on a screen. Their privacy is still protected over here. What I was doing as a mom was an invasion of privacy. And I was completely destroying the safe space that my kids have within their home. We should all have the assurance that when we're inside the walls of our own bedroom, that when we are in our own kitchens, that when we are in our own dining rooms, that is private time. That's family time, and it's not going to be broadcast publicly to the world. Those child actors, the paparazzi, may stand on their front porch and they may follow them as they go to the grocery store, birthday parties, or whatever, but they're not sitting down in their bedroom taking a video of them leaving their toothbrush where it doesn't belong. And in my opinion, this is why I agree with Shari Franke 100,000,000,000%, because I am a woman who has had my kids in front of the camera, and I have seen firsthand the negative implications. Even if people love them, even if people are telling them that they're the best and keep going, you've got this, we're here for you, they no longer have a private life at all. And it's worse than any child actor. It's worse than any celebrity out there, and they don't have control. I think it's terrible psychologically to have your whole entire life being lived publicly. As Americans, I have a right to privacy. The cops can't just come search my dresser over there without good cause and without a search warrant. They can't take pictures of me inside my home if I'm not in a public space. But somehow in America, we have for so many years treated children differently than adults, and we have stripped them of their rights. Children have a right to privacy as much as anybody else. And I, as the parent, cannot ever and should not ever make the decision to overrule and negate my child's right to privacy by saying, well, I'm the mom and I've decided that he doesn't get his right to privacy because I'm going to film this little birthday party so that I can make $500 on TikTok. Long before social media, I remember having an invasion of my own privacy by my own dad, who, when I had a high school boyfriend over, decided to whip out the family photo album of the day that I was born and show a little naked baby picture of me just, I don't know, 10 minutes old. And I remember how horrified I was to have that naked baby picture. And yet here all of the mommy influencers are like Ballerina Farm posting videos of that birth. If Hannah Neeleman wants to show us everything and post that bathtub birth and nursing the baby and all this stuff, that's fine. She's an adult. She can make that choice. But the baby is a citizen too, and the baby has a right to privacy, and the parent is not at liberty to negate a child's privacy, in my opinion. But unfortunately, we don't always care about what's good or what's wholesome or what's healthy. We're just focused on making money because we're in an economy where we're all clambering just to stay ahead. And so people are posting everything that they can to build a business and pay their mortgage and put braces on those kids. And I think that it's unfortunate. And somewhere in all of this, I think that there is a place where we can find balance. I personally think that it should be illegal to film children in private spaces inside their homes. Our kids deserve to have privacy, period. Now, here's what I do in my own platforms now. My youngest child is 15, so most of my kids are grown adults. If I'm ever going to feature them in a video, I tell them exactly what the video is. I pay them always. They get a little bit of money, a percentage of whatever the proceeds are, and they also get final edit. So if I shoot a video and one of my kids is like, I don't like the way this makes me look, I'm embarrassed, I don't want my friends to see this, then I'm going to throw that whole entire video away and I am not going to post it. I may send it to grandma, but that's it. They get final edit always. And it's made my life a little bit less interesting because you don't get to see my full big family life anymore, but my kids have privacy again. And instead of showing the world my adorable kids and my grandbaby and all the cute things they're doing, I take pictures for Kevin's mom, who makes an annual calendar every year. And we're always joking about, I hope this picture makes it on the calendar. It's kind of like being the cover of Sports Illustrated. And that's it. That's really the only people, and my Facebook friends who are my real life friends. I don't friend random strangers. Those are the only people who deserve to see my children's private life. Now for my favorite part of everything I do, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Thanks for watching. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great weekend.